Bill Hamilton is currently lying in a bed at Garland Memorial Hospital, fighting a mysterious rapid decline in his health. His daughters are terrified, his ex-wife is hovering, and his current wife, Haley, is playing the role of the devoted, weeping spouse to absolute perfection. But the real story is happening miles away on a phone screen where Dr. Madison Montgomery is staring at a set of medical charts that simply do not make any logical sense. Let's quickly recap the absolute chaos that has led us to this critical juncture. Bill Hamilton, the high-powered, ego-driven patriarch, recently collapsed in his office during a highly stressful deposition with Mike Davis. If it hadn't been for his assistant Caroline finding him and performing CPR, Bill would already be in the ground. He was rushed to the hospital, suffered multiple cardiac events in the OR, and had a pacemaker implanted. You would think a near-death experience would make a man want to rest, right? Wrong. Bill is currently reaching his absolute breaking point. He is completely fed up with being confined to a hospital bed, and honestly, can you blame him? His room has become a battleground. Danny and Haley are constantly at each other's throats, exchanging vicious threats and fighting over his bedside like vultures circling their prey. Bill can't stand the bickering for the nth time, and his toxic masculinity is screaming at him to rip out the IVs and walk out the front door. But here is the kicker. Bill wanting to leave the hospital is exactly what Haley is banking on. We all know Haley is slowly, methodically poisoning her husband. She has been slipping her special juice into his green smoothies and pushing him to the point of physical exhaustion under the guise of cardio interventions. Her ultimate goal was to get him to St. Bart's away from prying eyes and competent doctors to finish the job and secure that sweet $10 million life insurance payout. Bill's sudden hospitalization completely derailed her timeline. In a hospital, Bill is surrounded by monitors, nurses, and constant supervision. It is the safest place for him to be. But if Bill's impatience wins, if he demands to be discharged because he cannot handle the sterile environment and the endless catfights between his current and former wife, he is literally handing Haley the murder weapon. It increases her chances of ending his life and their marriage with terrifying speed. This is where the brilliant analytical mind of Dr. Madison Montgomery comes into play. Madison is currently out of town, dealing with her own professional obligations. Chelsea, Bill's daughter, and Madison's fiance, is an absolute wreck. She is frantic, terrified of losing her father, and completely reliant on Madison for answers. Despite the geographical distance, Madison remains deeply responsible for Bill's medical care. She's his doctor, and she takes that oath seriously. She has been receiving constant phone updates and reviewing the latest medical reports from the hospital staff. And this is where the viral, mind-bending twist of the entire storyline reveals itself. The data Madison is receiving is entirely contradictory. Make it make sense. On one hand, Madison is looking at reports showing that Bill's health is deteriorating at an alarming rate. His heart rate is experiencing sudden violent spikes. Now, we, the audience, know exactly why those spikes are happening. We saw Haley climb into Bill's hospital bed, weaponizing physical intimacy to test the durability of his new pacemaker, pushing his weak heart to the absolute limit until the monitors blared. But Madison doesn't know that. What Madison sees is a heart that is struggling to maintain a normal rhythm, a cardiovascular system that is under immense, inexplicable stress. But on the other hand, the laboratory test results are coming back completely stable. Read that again. The blood panels, the enzyme levels, the basic metabolic tests, they are all showing up as normal. There are no glaring red flags in the chemical makeup of his blood that would explain why a man with a brand new pacemaker is suddenly crashed. The numbers are stable, yet the patient is dying. How does a top-tier medical professional process a contradiction of that magnitude? If you are Madison Montgomery, you don't just accept it. You dig deeper. Madison is sitting miles away staring at these conflicting reports, and her brilliant mind starts connecting the dots. She realizes that this situation is fundamentally wrong. A failing heart does not produce perfectly balanced blood work unless something or someone is artificially masking the trauma. Madison's memory is triggered. She suddenly recalls Bill's previous checkups from earlier this year. She remembers the subtle, bizarre anomalies in his blood test back then, results that were similarly confusing and dismissed at the time. The pattern is undeniable. Bill's health is not just failing, it is being systematically dismantled. This is the exact moment the narrative shifts from an emotional family drama to a high-stakes medical thriller. Madison realizes that the doctors at Garland Memorial are missing the forest for the trees. They're looking at stable lab results and assuming Bill is just recovering slowly, completely oblivious to the fact that his actual physical decline is severe and unnatural. Madison knows that if she doesn't intervene, Bill is going to die, and the medical records will incorrectly show it as a natural, albeit tragic, heart failure. So, what does a woman of science and deep loyalty do? She makes the ultimate sacrifice. Madison has been weighing massive future plans. We know she has been considering prestigious opportunities, like the highly coveted Copenhagen Research Project. These are career-defining moments that could elevate her to global recognition in the medical field. But in the face of this terrifying medical mystery, none of that matters. Madison abruptly puts all her future plans on hold. She drops everything. Why? Because Bill's life is hanging by a thread, and more importantly, because Chelsea needs her. Let's take a moment to appreciate the sheer depth of Madison and Chelsea's relationship. Chelsea has been through unimaginable trauma in her past, including a horrific kidnapping plot orchestrated by her ex-girlfriend Alice. Chelsea's world is fragile, and the thought of losing her father to a sudden, inexplicable illness is pushing her to the brink of a breakdown. Madison knows that she is the anchor Chelsea desperately needs. She cannot sit in another city looking at digital charts while the woman she loves falls apart. Madison packs her bags and initiates an emergency trip back to Fairmont Crest. This impending return sets the stage for the ultimate showdown. It is no longer just Danny versus Haley in a battle of bitter exes. It is going to be Madison's cold, hard science versus Haley's ruthless, calculated poison. Think about the psychological warfare at play here. Haley believes she is the smartest person in the room. She thinks she has outsmarted the entire Dupree and Hamilton clans. She has utilized an untraceable toxin, or at least a toxin she believes is untraceable, to slowly drain the life out of her husband. She is banking on the fact that Bill's history of heart issues will provide the perfect cover story for his inevitable demise. And with Bill practically begging to be discharged from the hospital to escape the incessant fighting between her and Danny, Haley thinks she has already won. She is just waiting for the green light to take him home and finish the job. But Haley's severely underestimated doctor, Madison Montgomery. Here is my personal take, and the twist that I think is going to blow this entire storyline wide open. The very thing Haley thought would protect her is exactly what is going to expose her. Haley likely chose a poison that wouldn't trigger standard toxicology alarms, hence the stable lab results. But Madison is too smart for that. Madison's going to look at those stable results and realize that the absence of anomalies is the anomaly itself. When a body is failing this spectacularly, the blood work should reflect the chaos. The fact that it doesn't means the system is being manipulated. Madison isn't going to look for standard poisons. She is going to look for the masking agents. She is going to look for the specific rare compounds that mimic natural cardiac decline. Madison's emergency return is the ticking clock this storyline desperately needed. We have watched Haley slither her way through this family for months, manipulating Tomas, gaslighting Bill, and taunting Danny. But you cannot gaslight a blood panel when a genius is holding the microscope. The tension is absolutely palpable. Will Madison make it back to Fairmont Crest in time to halt Bill's discharge? Or will Bill's massive ego and stubborn impatience force the doctors to release him right into the waiting, venomous arms of his wife? If Bill leaves that hospital before Madison walks through those doors, Haley will have the isolated environment she needs to deliver the final, lethal dose. This is no longer just a story of emotion and betrayal. This is a story of intellect and survival. Madison is bringing the brains to a battle of hearts, and I, for one, cannot wait to see her rip Haley's master plan to absolute shreds. What do you guys think? Will Madison arrive in time to save her future father-in-law, or is Bill Hamilton's stubbornness going to be the final nail in his own coffin? Drop your thoughts, theories, and predictions below, and let's keep the conversation going.